This week on Supercars Torque, I apologise for doing my homework too early last week and show off my new whiteboard. So this week I've bought myself a new whiteboard. Not really going to use it this week. Hopefully the great text that I put on there a second ago, hopefully that comes out pretty good on the film. The plan is to, sometimes I might do some drawings on there, Larco style. You'll see my great graphics skills. I've got the dogs, I haven't even mentioned Lowndes, and I've got the dogs barking outside. Be interesting to see how that comes out on the film with the insulation and that going. It is a shed and I've still got the door open, and if you'd seen the build video, there's no kind of sound deadening on the other half of the shed or that, but it will be interesting to see how it goes here. So now last week, a few apologies. I did get a chance to film this quite early last week, and I did take the chance on that, and it probably bit me in the arse a little bit because I made a big deal about people not releasing liveries, and I did kind of single out Triple Eight, probably because, like say Penske, there's probably has been signed off quite early because of the sponsors and that involved, and they went out and actually released the livery before the video came out. So yeah, it's the usual kind of comments I see on the internet. You know, how it's boring and it's the same as last year and things like that. Well, unfortunately, guys, Red Bull and then Holden really dictate how they want the car to look, so it's not going to change much year on year. I imagine the Penske shell cars are going to look pretty much exactly the same, other than a couple of different sponsors. We have noticed that HP's gone off the car, and seems to be a lot more Caltech sponsorship and National Storage sponsorship on the car. They're probably the big things to take away from it. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same as last year. It's what we expected. Yeah, if you got complaints, we'll go somewhere else about that, I suppose. And the other thing that I kind of put my foot in my mouth over last week, Bryce Fullwood was announced at Walkinshaw Andretti United. So I had a bit of a spiel last week about how I'd heard that James Courtney was in negotiations there for the second full-time seat. That's why Fullwood hadn't actually been announced, and then bang, out it comes. Fullwood's announced. Interestingly enough, his backer middies from the his Super 2 campaigns is going to be on the car. That's going to be known as the Mobile One Middies car or something like that. Not sure what's happened to the big non-automotive sponsor, unless Middies is a big non-automotive sponsor that's going to be on Ford's car, and then a tool company is going to be on Chaz Mostert's car. Yeah, I heard it was a big two-car non-automotive thing that was going to be across the two cars. Doesn't look like it. Interesting there, you know, the whole, you know, and United Autosports, especially with Zach Brown and all of his, if people don't know, he kind of runs like a sponsorship finding kind of agency thing. Used to do a lot of deals for, say, like the Formula One teams, where he'd, you know, kind of find that a sponsor wanted to get into Formula One, and he'd, you know, place that sponsor with a team, you know, like go and feel out the teams and things and find that. And he was really good at, you know, finding somewhere for sponsors to go, and, you know, getting sponsors to teams. Of course, he'd charge a fee for it, things like that. Him and his company were really good at that, so I would have thought that that would have kind of flown on, you know, to the Walkinshaw Andretti United thing here, for them to find bigger backing to then go on and challenge like Triple Eight and Penske, who, as I said, have very good backing, and that's why we don't see their paint jobs change much year to year. This is, not so much looking like if, Middies is going to be kind of the co-sponsor of that his second car in the team. It does, Bryce definitely deserves a seat, but it does look a little bit kind of pay driver-ish if he's coming along with his sponsor to get plastered as a co-sponsor on the car. It's not a full budget or anything he's bringing. He's not a full-on pay driver, but he is bringing a sponsor that is possibly going to cover a lot of the car. So that's where we got to ask some questions. What's happening with the budget there down in Clayton? So that ties in nicely with supposedly Courtney and Techno Team Sydney is still a go. Apparently they have organised the second racing entitlements contract. They're ready to go. They've bought the second car from Triple Eight, which is actually the Triple Eight car that was used at the aero test, which I'll get into that in a minute. More boring stuff there. The big questions here are whether these cars are being updated, because I'd imagine if Triple Eight were using that for the aero test, it wouldn't be the best car in the fleet. Think they've got at least one new car online this year because Scott Pye is getting Shane Van Gisbergen's car from last year. What spec are these cars in? Will they be at the same spec? Will they be the same spec as the actual Triple Eight cars, or are they going to be 2, 3, 4 steps behind? Questions there. Who the hell is going to be the second driver as well? This point of the year, and is it a pay drive, or are they bringing someone in on merit? Or is it like the forward kind of situation where, the driver definitely deserves a seat, but they are bringing a budget? Who knows? There was a lot of rumours going around a couple of months ago about who it was, and most of those guys seem to have found seats. Like Will Brown and people like that, Bryce Fullwood, the Kostekis, they all seem to have a place now. So in the musical chairs, who's there? And most of the people who would have a budget to pay for that seat would have probably already organised what they're doing next year. Or I keep saying next season, we'll say. It's this year, 2020, Dave. Get on board with it. There was a lot of comments on the book faces and stuff about people whinging that why wasn't Gary Rogers given this chance? Well, Gary Rogers was given this chance. How the racing entitlements work is by a certain date you have to commit to next year, or you can not commit like Gary Rogers did, and the licenses kind of go into the pool or whatever. They sold theirs off. There is a few licenses sat there in the pool, like when Triple Eight and Tickford kind of forfeited their ones at the end of 2018. So there is a couple there, which that's one of the ones that Techno Team Sydney has got their hands on, is one of the ones that's kind of in the pool. So I think possibly up until the start of the year, you can apply to purchase one of those, and that's what Techno Team Sydney's done. Gary Rogers, they could still, apply for 1 or 2 of these licenses if they had the budget. I don't think they have. It all seems to have gone quiet there, so I think that's pretty dead and buried. Looks like they're going to run a couple more TCR cars this year and that, so that's where that's at. Gary Rogers was given the same opportunities that Techno was, but they kind of didn't take them. If you don't quite understand and got more questions, drop me a line and I'll try and explain it a bit better than that. In Adelaide, there's going to be a few new cars on the grid. I say a few, I'm not too sure. Obviously, we've covered Van Gisbergen's going to have a new car. Not sure if Wingcups is going to be new or not. Probably. Dave Reynolds is definitely getting a new car. They had planned on debuting, or Erebus had planned on debuting 2 new cars at the start of this year, but Anton had his big crash at Bathurst, so he's got rushed through, and they debuted a couple of races early. Reynolds has been built over the off season, so he starts off on a brand new car this year. And apparently Tickford is building 2 new cars at the moment, which they're saying they're going to be the last of the Gen 2 cars before the Gen 3 rules come in. So yet to be seen what kind of, package the Gen 3 comes out as, whether we will be using the current cars or, because the Gen 1 cars float over onto Gen 2 pretty easily. Interestingly enough, they haven't said who's getting the 2 new cars. I imagine they're trying to probably sell one of those to Phil Munday for team leader Will Davison. Did I say that aloud? That the 4th customer car in that team is probably going to be the fastest one out of the 4 all year. That will be an interesting dynamic for the team. But sad truth is that it probably is. Will got married over the week as well. Don't usually get into these things too much. But Will Davison finally got married to Rihanna Crean. That's probably been, building in the background for a long time. They've been together for a real long time. And I don't think I mentioned it, but Scott McLaughlin got married. Carly McLaughlin, I guess. He got married in the off season as well over in America. So congratulations to all 4 of you guys on becoming happily married, like myself. Now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. The new aero kits have been confirmed. So there was a heap of details. Stuff. They changed stuff. Apparently we are having a 12% reduction in aero for the year, but the Mustang got modified more than the Commodore. Don't know whether that means where the 12% is coming from. If one got modified more than the other, and was the Mustang actually, or does it just mean that they actually changed more stuff on the Mustang to get to that 12%? And the Commodore had maybe a little change here and there to get to the 12, and the Mustang had a change here and here or something. I couldn't be bothered reading the whole thing in depth and then trying to explain it to people. They've changed the cars a bit. Apparently the bigger change is going to the control damper. So apparently that's going to make a bigger difference than pulling 12% of aero off the car, which I think is probably the truth as well, because the aero, other than changing the angle of the rear wing, you can't do too much with, and the blanking that they have in the front bumper. The dampers, though, that makes a massive difference to the way the team set up their cars. So that's, I think that's going to be what we're talking about more during the early part of the year, rather than this 12% aero. Possibly if they took 50% of the aero off, like they probably should have, we would be talking about that more. The more interesting bit about this is, though, all the teams have been given, when they do the coast down testing and whatever at the airfield, wherever they were going to do it. I was going to say Woomera, but it was somewhere in Queensland they did it this time, I think. So what happened previously, the homologation teams, which I think the Ford ones it's mainly Penske, but Tickford gets a bit involved. Triple Eight's doing the Commodores now, and in the past you would have had, say, Erebus doing the Merc, Kelly's doing the Nissan, GRM doing the Volvo kind of thing. But now we've only got 2 makes, so it would have been Penske and Triple Eight doing the homologation. They would be the only ones that got all the figures of the aero map from the testing. Now Supercars has got all those figures. They're giving them to all the teams. So if you have engineers that are smart enough, and computer software and whatever, you can plug in the aero map into the thing and off you go. And you can do kind of a bit of a baseline setup and that a lot easier than what they would have, a bit more guesswork, I suppose, would have gone into it previously. So there's no advantage now in that respect of being the homologation team. In the past, they probably have had a bit of an advantage having that knowledge. That's taken away now. Everyone gets the same opportunity, which that's actually a really good thing, I think, across the board, that, they all have that. Obviously, the homologation teams have more money and resources and all of that, so they probably have a better idea of what's going on, but it does even it out a little bit more, which it's got to be good for the sport. A little bit more Triple Eight news here. Apparently, Jamie Whincup's going to decide on his future before Adelaide. Not sure why he's deciding before Adelaide. Maybe he'll drive the car at the bend at the test day, and if he's not the fastest, he'll go, I'll go and retire on this. Interestingly, it is really gaining momentum, this rumour about him retiring. And also, very interestingly, Anton De Pasquale is going to be driving for Triple Eight at the Bathurst 12 Hour in one of those Mercedes. So is this kind of an audition? Do they want to get him kind of, into the team, show him, this is how good we are, you can do these extracurricular things, Penske's not going to offer you this stuff, there's no way you're going to get an IndyCar test if you go to Penske. It's just interesting. We'll find out what's happening with Whincup, and, then we'll possibly know where Anton's going if, Whincup says he's retiring. Or if Scott announces that he's going to go and drive IndyCar. So, and speaking of people driving other things, Chaz Mostert has won Daytona. Not the big win, that would have been nice. It was in a GT class. He was driving a BMW for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, which is funnily enough an IndyCar team as well. Interesting there with the Andretti connection and all of that. How all these contracts work. But yeah, must have been a good weekend for him. Gets a really nice watch out of it. So they give him a Rolex when they win that race. So yeah, Chaz has got himself a nice Rolex. So that covers off everything for this week. I did have some plans to use a whiteboard and draw some things on there, but there was enough news to cover for the week, and I've probably blabbered on long enough for you. So until next time, I'll see you later.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild and different. We can all get lit from a little goose. I know you're terrified by what